Well, then, though this is hardly the, sort of the be all and the end all when it comes to writing things about the 30s poets, this is kind of my personal take, my own personal views about the poets, the astounding poets of the 30s, the Auden group. And well, just to recapitulate, that is the social anxiety, the foreboding of something bigger happening, and the social conflict. Well, these are the things that actually define their works. But anyway, there's something else that we should know, that is, we should, sort of take a look at certain samples of their poetry to at least have an inkling of the kind of things they wrote. And by everything that goes for in poetry, what they wrote is quite spectacular and very shocking in a way. Not just shock with a shock value, that is blood and gore and action and violence, not like that, or sex. It's more or less they have a premonition that the existence, their existence, our existence, is not the gay, jolly kind of thing that romantics and other, sort of ultra optimist people would have us believe. Now, here's something from the poem called It's No Use Raising a Shout by W.H. Auden. It's no use raising a shout. That is, it's no use shouting. No, honey. It's sort of a conversation kind of thing, and the opposite person, probably the wife, the middle class wife in a middle class family, in a middle class household. That is the commonest kind of setting which comes when we think about British poetry of 1930s, the socialist poetry, etc. No, honey, you can cut that right out. I don't want any more hugs. Make me some fresh tea. Fetch me some rugs. Free verse in a way, but there is the pretense, not the pretense, but somewhat amusing wordplay which leads to a bit of rhyming. I'm saying it's an amusing kind of wordplay, and with very commonplace words, and the poem is very, very conversational. It's no use raising a shout. No, honey, you can cut that right out. I don't want any more hugs. Make me some fresh tea. Fetch me some rugs. Now the refrain, that is, this poem has a refrain. Here am I, here are you. But what does it mean? What are we going to do? Here am I am here. Here are you. Well, you might mean the reader of the poem, or the reader or the public in general too. But what does it mean? Once again, a quest for meaning. Some sort of a question, once again the overwhelming question. As Mr. Eliot would have it, the overwhelming question, but what does it mean? Kintu er maneta ki? What are we going to do? Now, this is one of the best reference I have heard in the recent times in a poem that is very modern, very practical, very commonplace, very mundane, and very striking. It's very striking in a sense that it poses a question to all of us. Here am I, here are you. But what does it mean? What are we going to do? It's almost like Brecht. It's almost like Godot, the wait for Godot, that goes on and on and on, and we don't know what it means, and we simply don't know what are we going to do. What exactly are we going to do in the grand scheme of things? We can go to the bazaar, get the grocery, cook, eat, sleep, read a book or two, read the newspaper, get anxious, get angry, make love, make dreams out of nothing, even try our hand at some poetry. But in the grand scheme of things, the grand scheme of the universe, what does it mean? What are we going to do? It's well, once again, lots of words. But what does it mean, and what are we going to do? Exactly, what are we going to do? Yes, we are going to read poems like this. At least we will have the question that what are we going to do? Please pardon this kind of light offing and on-ing, that is this dichotomy of the light, that is the khamkhealipona of the light. It's the screen going on and off. Well, this much for now. What are we going to do? But we are here, at least. We are here for you. You are here for me or us. But what does it mean? Well, we don't know what it means. But as students of literature, we can always try to find out what exactly it means and what we are going to do. In Bangla, once again, এর মানেটা কি, আমরা কি করব? This is a question that has puzzled philosophers of all ages. Theologians and social scientists have made their doom trying to answer this single question. And this question will always remain. As with Mr. Eliot, so with Winston Hugh Auden. Once again, the refrain, but what does it mean? What are we going to do? This much for this poem, that is, it's no use raising a shout. There's another poem by Isherwood, it's Day Lewis, and that's quite something. It's a metaphysical parody or a metaphysical madrigal set in the 1930s, or it's a general kind of loveless and mundane kind of poetry that they wrote in those days. Before that poem, I must read the poem by Christopher Marlowe, that is the Elizabethan playwright. And it's a very famous and a very common poem, The Passionate Shepherd to His Love. It's very, very known and very, very common cliched lines which you have heard thousands of times. Come live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove, that hills and valleys, dales and fields, woods or steepy mountain yields. Simple Elizabethan kind of thing. Come live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove, that is, we will have all the pleasures that can be provided by the hills and valleys, dales and fields, woods or steepy mountain yields. That is, nature is triumphant in its expanse, and we will have all the joys that nature can give us. This is Elizabethan, and this is also the precursor to the English Romanticism of the 18th century. Nature. Once again, nature will give us boundless kind of pleasure and joy and things of beauties which are joys forever. With due apology to Mr. Keats. Anyway. Now, Day Lewis modified this poem. Cecil Day Lewis, come live with me and be my love. It goes like this. That is the Lewis edition. Come live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove. This much for the parallel. Of peace and plenty, bed and board, that chance employment may afford. Pleasures of peace and plenty. Now we set aside the peace of plenty for now, because peace and plenty, that is the peace after the, probably after the First World War, and the plenty that is coming from the colonial and capitalist enterprises into England, that is the plenty and the peace by dominating other nations. But the other part of the sentence is something that catches our eye. Bed and board. Bed and board is a phrase which is actually used to denote cheap hotels for travelers with meager economic means. Bed and board. Well, it might also mean bed and breakfast, but this phrase, this catchword is associated with cheap hotels. Once again, the squalor and the mundaneness and the everydayness of Eliot's one night cheap hotels in the Prufrock poem comes into play once again. That is bed and board. That chance employment may afford. That is the bed and board, which is the best affordable kind of hotels if we go traveling, that is when we have an unstable chance employment. That is, remember, as I have said about the Great Depression, jobs were scarce and jobs were getting temporary because there was the economic depression. So in this age of economic depression, employment was not that much well paying. Jobs did not pay that much, and the hills and valleys of the Elizabethan poem by Marlowe has been substituted by Day-Lewis by bed and board, which is afforded. Bed and board means cheap hotels that you can afford since you are in chance employment, that is unstable and temporary employment. And economic depression is raging all over the world. So this is the kind of thing that the 1930s produced. For further study, you can also go back to the internet, which is a very good source of everything that you need while studying and other things. And well, this much for the 1930s. But even before that, I must read a bit from this very poem, that is the bed and board poem. Care on thy maiden brow shall put a wreath of wrinkles. So instead of a wreath, a mukut of flowers, duschinta, that is care, that is anxiety, and the sort of thinking too much about what tomorrow will bring, will wrinkle the brow. That is the wreath, that is the flower, the garland of flowers, or the tiara of flower that was supposed to be on the head is actually substituted by wrinkles, because it's a depression economy and things are very uncertain of as it is. That is, there is no guarantee that tomorrow I will have my job or my money. And thy foot be shod with pain, and your foot will not be shod by soft chamois leather, but it will be very painful walking in cheap boots, going to the market and the office and all that. Not silken dress, but toil shall tire thy loveliness. Once again, it's about the temporal beauty of the woman that it is being addressed to, probably. Silken dress will not adorn the woman. Toil, that is hard labor. Hard labor will be the thing that this woman will wear as a dress. It's depression times and you can't have silk. All you have is hard labor, anxiety and care. Well, hard labor, anxiety and care, and worldwide conflict, and socialism versus Nazism, and the anxiety, and what exactly are we going to do though we are here. This actually sums up the kind of poetry that 1930s produced. That's all, and keep studying, keep healthy, be wise, and as you are studying, try to acquire some other knowledge too, because knowledge must prevail. It's more like a sort of big brother kind of thing. Knowledge must prevail. Well, this I say always, is something that I say always, simply because, well, knowledge is something that's infinite and it's free if you want it. The only thing that even if you give away, it doesn't diminish. The more you give knowledge away, the greater knowledge becomes. And so, knowledge will and knowledge must prevail. That's all. Have a nice day or evening or night, whatever you want, and be happy in your life. That's all.